you go. All right, so this is the student panel. This is I purposefully put this at the end of the event because I think this is sort of sometimes where you guys want to ask all the nitty-gritty stuff that you've like thought about, in the last 24 hours to the people that will give it to you straight, right? So now I think, I hope you've gotten this, that there really isn't any questions that you can't ask. There's nothing that's off limits or anything like that. We're going to be honest with you one way or the other. If people were going to say wild, crazy things, I would not have asked them to be here. But I've also asked people that are honest and I know that have a variety of experiences and stuff, so that they will be able to answer your questions. And I trust them all. They know that they don't have to say the right answer. That I want them to give you the truth. So don't be worried about what to ask or anything like that. So I'm going to have we're going to sort of go. Start on this side with introductions. No problem. And we'll do this, and I'll walk around the mic. So let's see. So Camille, we'll start with you. So hometown, where you went to undergrad, and the thing that surprised you most about law school that you didn't expect. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
Got it? Okay.
My name's Camille Youngblood. I'm from Harlingen, Texas.
Woo!
I went to A&M undergrad.
Woo!
And yep. And the thing that surprised me the most, I think you get a lot of really horror stories about law school going into it, and so I was kind of surprised that how doable it is if you work hard and really put in the effort for it. That was kind of surprising and the greatest thing, because I was like, oh, I can do this. It's not insane. So.
Andrew?
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Tingen. I'm from Beaumont, Texas. I don't think we have anybody from Beaumont, but,
You can woohoo.
Okay.
I mean, I woohooed for the Valley. You can woohoo for Beaumont.
Makes me feel good. Well, I went to West Point for undergrad. The thing that surprised me most about law school, I'd say how genuine people are for the most part. I don't know the whole reasoning behind sections, but I think that does help a little bit. But like Camille said, it's definitely doable. I think you'll be surprised about how many people kind of have the same feelings you do. So you get to talk to people, and you come to find out that you're not really so different. Everybody's not smarter than you. I think Dean Perez does a good job. So, but for the most part, it's doable, and it's just take a realistic approach, and I think you guys will be fine.
Hi, I'm Janae Duran. I'm from El Paso, Texas, and I did my undergrad at New Mexico State University. I'm a 2L, and what surprised me most about coming to law school was the environment here. I heard everyone hears horror stories about how competitive and how cutthroat law school is, but the nice thing that I found about Tech when I came here was that everyone was really friendly, from the admission staff to the person that toured the law school with me, that gave me my tour. They were all really friendly, and that's part of the reason why I decided to come to Tech, was because I didn't experience the environment that I thought I would when I got here, and especially when I did come in August, it was more of the same. So I think I made a good decision in doing that. So that's really what surprised me most, because I really didn't expect that.
Janae, do me a favor and move your mic closer to you. Thanks. Derek?
So my name is Derek Mergel. I am from Austin, and I'm from Texas State University. And go Bobcats.
There you go. I like it.
And I think the thing that surprised me the most about law school, specifically at Texas Tech, was that I fit in. And I mean, this is a pretty diverse group of people up here, but I'm not a traditional student. And I was asked a question last night of, Dean Perez said that the average age of a student here is 25, and they were like, oh my God, that's so much older than I am. And being someone who is older than that, I hang out with a bunch of 22-year-olds on a daily basis, and it's fine. And I have a friend who's also a 2L that just turned 60, and friends of all ages in between. So yeah, I think that was what surprised me.
My name is Nirav Patel. I'm a third-year law student. I did my undergrad here at Texas Tech, and I'm originally from Snyder, Texas. If anyone knows where that is,
No
probably
woohoos
not.
for Snyder.
Yeah, and that's okay. The thing that surprised me most about law school is how much I've actually enjoyed it. Coming into law school, I thought it was gonna be miserable for 3 years, and looking back, 3 years ago, I was in your all's seats, and one, I'm really glad I decided to go to law school, but I'm even more happier with the decision I made to come here to Texas Tech School of Law. So.
My name is Teresa, and I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to undergrad at St. Edward's in Austin, Texas. And I would say, I'm going to second what Nirav said. The thing that surprised me the most is how much I've actually enjoyed law school. One, I was actually deathly afraid of having one final at the end of a semester. I was like, how does that even work? I mean, you get one chance. But I promise you, there's a curve, and if you study, you'll be fine. Somebody told me that my first semester of law school, as long as you study, you won't fail, and they're not wrong. I'm here now, I'm fine, and I think that that's something that y'all should definitely not be scared of at all. And the second thing is also just the environment. Here, I think probably because it's also a smaller town, that that basically you actually get to meet a lot of people, and people are very friendly. And I really enjoyed my experience here, and it's going to be bittersweet leaving Lubbock. And I didn't necessarily know if I would feel that way coming in. So anyways, I highly encourage this school, and I think it was a wonderful experience.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, my name is Deja. What other law schools did you pick from, and why did you choose Texas Tech?
Should I start?
Whoever wants to jump in on that one.
So
We'll go down the line.
Sorry, start?
No, and then we'll just go down the line.
Oh, okay. So I applied to schools all over Texas, and growing up in Los Angeles, I kind of knew I didn't want to be in a big city. But I moved here from California and wanted to definitely stay in Texas. And so I applied to schools all over the state, and I got into a few. And the reason I chose Texas Tech is because of the environment. One, we have an open door policy here, which it really makes a difference. I get to talk to my professors at any given time about questions that I have, and you'd be surprised how many questions you have, because the material, of course, you're covering is a lot. And two, I've made lifelong friends. Like Nirav said, I kind of came into law school being a little scared of it, because people kind of give you horror stories, but I promise you, you make the best of it. And Tech has a really welcoming community. So I've made lifelong friends that I'm really excited to be able to, continue to grow with, I guess, once we graduate and move on to our careers. And I think that that's really unique to this school. So that's why I chose Tech.
I was deciding between Texas Tech and UT Austin, and ultimately I ended up coming here because it was going to be cheaper for me. I wanted to stay in Lubbock because I'd been here for undergrad. The other thing is, it was nice to know that my family and my entire support system back in Snyder was only an hour and a half away, as opposed to 5 hours away. So that did play a little bit into my decision. Not to say that if you're coming from Austin or Houston or any other bigger city and you're further away from your family, you'll be totally fine here. Like Teresa said, the community here is just fantastic. But those were the schools I was deciding between.
I was deciding between schools around Texas and around the country, and ultimately I decided that I wanted to practice in Texas and thought I should go to school in Texas if I want to practice in Texas. And when I was considering Texas Tech, the thing that really spoke to me was I liked the people. It was a great value for the price, considering just every other law school in Texas at the time was more expensive. I think UNT Law, which is not currently accredited, but it's almost there, I think is the only one that's cheaper. And I looked at the bar pass rate. I was reminded that to be an attorney, you have to pass the bar. And you can go to school for 3 years and you can become $120,000 to $100 or to $200,000 in debt. And if you can't pass the bar, you're not going to be an attorney. And when I was at Accepted Students Weekend at the time, Tech had a higher bar passage rate than UT. And currently, I believe UT's bar pass rate is about 2 percentage points ahead of Tech. And that really spoke to me.
So I was basically deciding, can you hear me?
Is it on?
Not on. I don't know.
Use Andrew's.
Okay. Okay, so for me, I had applied to a bunch of schools around Texas, and I had also applied to KU, and that's ultimately where it came down between Tech and KU. And the reason I chose Tech is I had spoken to an attorney that's a friend of my parents, and she suggested that if I wanted to stay and practice in Texas and New Mexico, which is ultimately kind of what I want to do, I want to practice in both, or be licensed in both anyway, was to come to law school in Texas. So that's kind of the reason I chose Tech. But like I said before, when I came here, the environment was really welcoming. It was really friendly, and it's not just Tech; it's Lubbock itself. If you walk into any store in Lubbock and you run into somebody in an aisle, they're going to stop and say hi to you, and they're going to ask you how your day is, and they'll probably keep you there for a couple of minutes. And it's just the people here. They're just so nice. And they're just so open, and this town runs on Tech. So when you tell them that you're a student, they're super supportive of you. They ask you how you're doing, how far along in school you are, and then they're just really happy for you. They just tell you, oh, good luck. I hope you do well. I hope you're successful. All of that. So that was really nice. I didn't expect Lubbock to be like this. Coming from El Paso, I didn't really know what to expect. It was definitely a little bit of a culture shock coming from living on the border to coming here to living with nothing around you. But I think I chose Tech mainly because of the environment and the people and the experience I got when I visited the university.
All right, well, I'll just echo what everybody else said. I think a big motivator for me was that I wanted to practice in Texas. So I was looking at other schools in Texas, but what ultimately made up my mind was coming to Accepted Students Weekend. I went to a few other ones, and specifically when I came back, because I came back to look for apartments and things like that, and I did those in those other cities as well, and what I saw was not completely different from what I saw whenever I came to Accepted Students Weekend, as opposed to some other schools. Some of them put on a show for you, and you see that if you come back, and I didn't really see a difference at all in the culture. Everybody's very welcoming. I had a little different undergraduate experience than a lot of you, but the open door policy is what it means. It is an open door policy. Apart from office hours or anything like that, if you see a professor, they'll have an honest conversation with you. They'll have a meaningful conversation with you if you just walk in the door. And I think that's important. I think more so of where you go to school is who you do it with and the people that are there. And that's basically what made up my mind.
Okay, so I am from a small town, so I really kind of wanted to be in a city. So I was in between schools in Houston and Dallas, and I ended up here. And a big part of that was Accepted Students Weekend. Obviously, the community and everyone is so nice, and that really helped sell it for me and my parents. But one of the big things for me was that in Houston and Dallas, I had all my undergrad friends or friends from home, and that's kind of just a big distraction. So here you're kind of insulated from that, and you're removed. So as far as academics, that kind of forces you to be on top of your stuff and really get stuff done. And you're gonna have fun, you're gonna meet people, but they're all going through the same experiences that you are. So that was a big thing that people said, just because it forces you to really buckle down and get your stuff done. And I found that to be true, and the community is great too. And it's
what kinds of jobs have y'all had in the summer, and what are you hoping to do, or what have you gotten hired to do, etc.?
What kind of jobs
Did you hear that? So what did you do this summer? What kind of jobs have you had? Where have you been? That kind of thing. The 1Ls, you guys, not yet. But maybe we start that one out with Teresa on your
Okay, so last summer I worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Texas in El Paso. I interned there for 8 weeks, and it was a really good experience getting a federal internship. It was really interesting because you get to see, obviously, a governmental perspective, and they do both civil and criminal prosecution. So it was a really nice experience because they let me go to trial with them. I did research for them. I sat in on depositions. I got to sit in on trial strategy. Two of the attorneys pretty much put on like a mock trial for us, and they were trying to see if their argument was going to work, if we bought their argument coming in cold. So that was really cool to see that. Currently, I work for the DA's office in Lubbock. I'm an appellate clerk for them, so I do appellate briefs, I write research memos, I do trial transcripts, stuff like that. And that's been a really good experience as well. For this summer, I'm working for a civil defense firm in El Paso as well. It's a private firm, so I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what I've currently been doing. And it's pretty much just so I can see what kind of works for me. I'm still unsure about exactly what I want to do. I know.
So during my 1L year, I actually clerked for Disability Rights Texas here in Lubbock, which as a 1L is kind of unheard of, and that is definitely not for everybody. There's a lot to focus on when you're a 1L in the way you reorient your brain and think about things. My summer, I clerked for the Office of the Attorney General in Austin in the Transportation Department. So we represented TxDOT when they were taking away people's land for freeway expansions. And then my second internship in the summer was actually with the Hays County District Attorney's Office in San Marcos. And I purposefully took a criminal job because I walked into law school and said there are two areas of law I will never do. And it's criminal and it's family law. And I walked away. I took the internship to permanently cross criminal law off the list, and I had one of the best experiences of my life. And next year I'll be in the criminal defense clinic, and I'm going back to the Hays County District Attorney's Office this summer, and I'm also interviewing with a couple private firms in Austin. So.
The summer after my 1L year, I worked for a federal district judge in Midland, and I worked for a firm the second half of the summer. So when I worked for the judge, I got to see trials from the very beginning to the very end, what I call like from voir dire to verdict. Voir dire being the process by which you select the jury members all the way through when the jury comes out of deliberations and delivers their verdict. So I got to see 6 of those trials, 5 criminal, 1 civil in a federal court, and did a little bit of research, wrote some briefs for the judge, so that was kind of interesting, or wrote motions denying or approving motions for the judge. The remainder of my first summer, I worked for a oil and gas firm in Midland, back when oil and gas used to be booming. And it was a really great experience, got to do a lot of transactional work. The summer after my second year, I went back to the firm in Midland, and then I also worked at a firm in Fort Worth for 6 weeks, and that's where I'll be working permanently after graduation in Fort Worth.
So the first summer after my 1L year, I clerked at a law firm in Austin, Texas, and I clerked there all summer. I actually started as an intern before law school and came back as a law clerk my first summer. And then I went back again as a 2L. After my 2L year, I clerked at that same firm, and I'll be going back there after graduation. But one of the really cool things about being able to have the experiences you have in law school is kind of what he said about, you get a wide variety of exposure. Although I was working at this civil litigation law firm in Austin my first summer and my second summer, I wanted to get exposure to some other things. And so my second year, the the spring semester of my second year, I did the ADR clinic. So I'm a trained mediator, and I was able to do mediations during the time that I'm also doing classes. This semester, I'm actually done with classes. I'm externing at the General Counsel's office at Texas Tech. There's several externship opportunities all over the state. I chose to stay here because I'm married, so I wanted to be able to be with my husband. And I also thought it was really awesome to get exposure to working for a General Counsel's office, because I had not yet gotten exposure to working for a General Counsel's office. So I would highly encourage y'all to utilize not just the summers, but your experiences during the year. They're talking about some of the things that they're doing, either working for, the Lubbock District Attorney's Office, or a private law firm in Lubbock. There's so many different things you can do your second and third year.
Yeah, but I did have a sort of a slight follow-up question, and maybe Camille and Andrew want to talk about this, or somebody else. How did you get these summer positions? It sounds like Teresa had a good deal. She stayed in with networking with her previous employer and kept up with that. But for those others that kind of went different places or are looking right now, how is that process going?
Well, I did a variety of things. Obviously, there's a career services office here that can help you out. But I think, I don't know if you've had, I guess, who's been talking to you guys, but a lot of times they'll say, okay, if you have another outlet that you can use, then that's also a valuable resource. So I did look at some other things. I worked for 5 years. I was active duty military for 5 years after graduation. So I do have some other people and outlets, and I guess I had another career. But I did end up getting my summer position through OCI, which is on-campus interviews through the Career Services Office. So what we'll probably talk about is how to utilize your time a little bit. So over Christmas break, I kind of knocked out all that stuff. I did all the resume corrections and the cover letters, because I did not want to do that during the spring semester. And I ended up getting an interview probably the first or second week of the second semester, and I ended up getting a position with an energy firm in Dallas. But for the second half, like I said, I had a little different undergraduate experience, so I didn't really get a chance. And I was an athlete, so I didn't get a chance to do a summer abroad program or something like that. My roommate was a French major, and he spent a semester in France. He was gone all the time, and I'm like, oh, well, I want to do that. And I never got a chance to. So being in law school is kind of giving me that opportunity to do that. So I'll be in Mexico for the first half, doing a summer institute program in Guanajuato. So it gives you a chance to do abroad, to do a lot of things aside from clerking or working for a firm, especially your 1L summer. For me, I wanted to do it this summer because I don't know what's going to happen next summer. I could be working the whole summer. So it gives you an opportunity to look at those things and decide what's really important for you. So that was kind of my approach to it.
So I'll be working in Dallas for the first half with a state judge, and then the second half with a federal bankruptcy judge in McAllen. And I got those in two different ways. The judge in McAllen, the career services really helped me with that. And I know my undergrad experience with the career services wasn't always the best, but career services here is extremely helpful. Paul essentially kind of wrote my cover letter for me, really helped me, and I had people actually comment on it, so that was really helpful for me. And something that I think is really important that is hard for me, and maybe for y'all, is using your connections, which is very, very important, but for some reason, my pride, I don't know, it gets with me. But I found the judge in Dallas through connections that I made here with a student. So one of her dads found it. And so utilizing those connections may feel awkward, but I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think.
And just to add onto what Camille and Andrew are saying, as upperclassmen, or even as a 1L, I know Dean Perez posted job placements that he had found or that he had heard of through his own connections onto our page for us to apply for. And as a 2L and a 3L, if you're looking to intern or if you're looking to clerk, a lot of people that are already clerking or interning at firms or at the DA's office or at other governmental entities, they'll let you know when they're hiring so that you can apply and you can talk to them and apply. And then it's a nice gateway because they'll tell you when to apply and how to apply. And it's nice because they already know the firm or they already know how the office runs, so they can kind of help you out with that as well. So that's actually how I found my job with the district attorney this this past year.
The one thing I'll say, I think networking is really important. I will say, when I came to law school, I didn't have any attorneys in my family. I didn't know any attorneys. I'd never worked in a legal environment before. And if you're in that type of position, don't let that scare you from coming to law school or coming to tech. You can also be successful here. The positions I got with law firms, I got them through on-campus interviews. The firms come here to interview students. The one for the judge, I applied directly to the judge. So if you don't have a network that you can reach out to, you can build your network while you're in law school and then utilize it as you get closer and closer to starting your career. So don't let that scare you.
I know that the financial stuff of law school kind of scares a lot of us, especially if we don't have, people paying for it or anything like that. What has y'all's experience been with, I don't know how many of you are on loans and stuff like that, but do you ever feel pressure like that you're going to run out of money or anything like that?
Oh, you all have a lot of money, right? You all have independently wealthy?
I can say that, Teresa mentioned that she was married. I'm also married, and my husband lives in Austin, and we maintain 2 residences while I'm here with no income. And I take the maximum amount of loans on top of a scholarship that I have, and it is tight, and it can be tight. You learn how to get really good at budgeting. Lawyers don't do math very well. We can count pennies, and we can count to 33%. So it's definitely something to think about. Like, I know when I was preparing to come to law school, one of the things that I had to look at, because I had a career and a life before this, was I had to think about, okay, how much debt do I have already? Credit card debt, car payments, insurance for the car, our rent. We have 2 teenage girls, so school stuff for them. There's a lot of things you need to take into consideration for your life. But I'm here to tell you it's doable. Absolutely.
Okay, so when I came to school here, I didn't have any undergrad debt because I had been on a scholarship in undergrad. So the thought of being in debt for school really freaked me out. Like, it's scary. I understand. But I take out loans. And the nice thing about, and that's not the nice thing about taking out loans sucks. Like, let's be real. But Mark Langford, he's our financial aid guru. Mark is fantastic. Like, I cannot sing the praises of Mark enough. He's so great. Literally, you can walk into his office and be like, Mark, look, this past year, I fell off of my parents' insurance because I turned 26. So I no longer had insurance through my parents. So I started freaking out a little bit because I had to pay for my own insurance, for my own health insurance now, on top of everything else that I was already paying for. But I went in and I talked to Mark, and I told him, look, this is what I have to pay for. I'm really not sure that my financial aid this semester is going to cover it. So he went in and he checked all the numbers. And he was like, well, this is what we can do for you. And that's the great thing about Mark, is he will find any way to help you that he can. He will find every single deductible he can get you. He will give you any way to, he'll do anything to assist you. And that's also the great thing about being here, is that the people in admissions or even professors, anybody helps you. You can talk to a professor about financial aid. We have an income tax clinic. They actually do student taxes for free. There's just a lot of different options that you have coming here. So I know the idea of going into debt for law school scares you. It really scared me. But I think, like Derek said, you just have to learn how to budget. You really, I knew how to budget before, but I really learned how to budget in law school. But there's always time. If you budget correctly, you still have enough to go have fun with your friends, to do the things that you want to do. You just have to remember what's important and how you want to prioritize your finances.
I think the important thing that she said is that you have to have a plan. So you really can't just come into it. I guess you could, but it's probably not the smartest thing to do. But I think what takes away a lot of the pressure is just going into it, having a plan, and sticking to it. Because if you're worrying about it while you're trying to do other things, then that's not really the best situation. For me, I'm partially using the GI Bill, so we had to figure all that stuff out. But I know Mark does magic, but he really does. So, and another thing that I noticed is that how responsive that the financial aid office is. They understand the burdens, they understand the stressors that come with that. I think when I was driving here, my dad drove actually, and I think I was on my phone driving through Snyder and some of those other places, emailing back and forth with Mark, and we figured out everything within, I think it was like 3 hours on a Monday. So it's just one of those things that you definitely have to think about. You have to have a plan, and you have the resources here, and there's people here to help you if you do have questions. I'm sure they've probably answered a lot of them already. But it is a task, but I think it's a task best handled if you prepare for it.
Yeah, what's everybody into here in law school? I know we've got a very active set here, so we'll start, Camille, and go that way. Well, I guess one else, like student orgs, did you do competitions, that kind of stuff? And then we'll just move on with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm a 1L, so I've been trying to kind of concentrate on school, but I have been involved in the one organization, OWLS, and the Aggie Bar Association as well.
What is OWLS?
OWLS is the Organization of Women Law Students. Come see us at the chili cook-off. We have a good chili. But also, I've been trying to do all the competitions for the advocacy competitions because I think for me, I know like speaking in public isn't my greatest forte, so it's been really good to like be put on my feet, be put on the spot, and like really just get that under my belt. So when I'm called on in class, I don't freak out as much.
I'll echo what Camille said. I think a big portion of your 1L year should be focused on your studies, but only, I guess, to a certain extent. You have to know your limits, and you need balance, and that's always important. I think things tip the scale a little bit more your 2L and 3L year because you're kind of focused on the road ahead, but your 1L year is primarily dominated by your studies. But with that, there's still a lot of room to do things. So I've done the advocacy competitions, mock trial, moot court, and negotiations. Just for me, because I know what I don't want to do, but with that, also know that I still probably need to be confident in those skill sets. So I know for me, I don't necessarily want to be in trial every month, but I think that's a good skill as an attorney that you probably should have. So it's better to get the kinks out now as opposed to when it matters. So that was primarily my rationale behind getting a broad experience. As things move on, I'll probably choose one and go from there. But as far as extracurriculars, you do have the time to fit it in. I'm a part of BLSA, the Black Law Students Association. I'm also involved in student government as well. So there are chances to kind of get involved, to get out there, and mix things up a little bit. So.
Okay, so I'm currently the vice president of the Hispanic Law Students Association and a part of the Student Recruitment Council, which is why I'm up here, part of the reason, and I was there yesterday checking y'all into some of you at the luncheon. And I'm also a staff member of the Texas Tech Law Review. I've done a couple of well, actually not a couple, I've only done one of the I did a negotiations competition, I went all year. And I didn't do mock trial or moot court because I didn't feel like I could manage all of that 1L year. So that's primarily why I didn't do mock trial or moot court. This year I was going to brief write for moot court. However, I had a final due, so I didn't end up doing it. But that's I'm trying to step more into the advocacy realm because like Camille, I'm not the greatest public speaker. I don't like to do it. It's part of the reason I'm taking the evidence class that I'm taking right now is because it's tethered with a trial advocacy course and because also Professor Benham makes you think on your feet. I don't know if any of y'all have met Professor Benham or have heard him speak. He's very energetic. He was a litigator in Dallas, and you can tell he's a litigator, just his personality. so that's why I took his class. He makes you think on your feet. He makes you it's not a lecture and it's not a seminar. It's like an active class. Derek is in there with me, and you have to make arguments like you're in front of a trial judge. So I think that is a very different approach to teaching. It's different than the Socratic method, which I personally don't care for, being in law school, but I mean, that's part of the curriculum. But I mean, it's different, and it's awesome because I was so scared walking into that class because I'm not, like I said, I don't want to litigate, I don't want to do anything like that. But walking in there and having to think on my feet and having to know the pros and cons and like the arguments for both sides, I mean, it's a really cool experience. So now that next year I can go in and use those skills that I've learned in the classroom and through the trial advocacy course and apply it to mock trial and moot court competition. So I thought that was really cool.
I think that I'm the example of what career services and Dean Perez probably tell you not to do. I'm the outgoing president of Lavender Law, which is the sexual orientation and gender identity inclusive student organization. I am a teaching fellow, so I tutor 1Ls on legal writing. I am a research assistant for a professor here at the law school. I am the vice president of finance for the Student Bar Association, which is our student government. I am the executive comment editor for the Estate Planning and Community Property Journal. And next year I will be on the board of barristers. I did all the advocacy competitions. I am on a national negotiation team. Yeah, I do too many things.
In other words, we could have just had just you on the panel, right? Just by yourself.
I'm the executive managing editor of the Law Review. I'm also on the board of barristers. Those are kind of the two organizations that I really pride myself on being involved in, and those are the two that take up most of my time. I was involved on two national moot court teams during my 2L year. I was a tutor for contracts and torts the last couple of years. Ambassadors, tech law ambassadors, kind of a fun deal. I think that's it. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's great because you can kind of choose your path in law school. I made law review after you do the write-on packet after your first year, and so I made law review, and then I was also asked to be my legal writing professor or legal practice professor's research assistant. So the past 2 years, that's been my focus. I'm a research assistant, and I'm now a comment editor on Law Review. And I've, enjoyed dedicating my time to that. I think that there's other things like I got involved in, but I just didn't, like I said, you kind of choose your path and you focus your attention where you want to focus your attention. So I did do some of the Bob competitions. My first year, I think I did all of them. It's kind of a nice break if you feel that you can handle it in the midst of your first year. It is a nice break from classes. So I think I did do all the competitions my first year. And then my second year, I think I only did the negotiations, and that was simply because I had a lot of other things on my plate. Going back to what I had said previously, I also did the ADR clinic my spring semester of my 2L year. So, the more you pile on your plate, obviously, you have to manage that with classes. And so it's kind of just up to you how much you want to take on and how much time you have to balance everything. I will also say that my second summer, I did do a study abroad. I don't know if any of you are interested in international stuff, but we do have international program. We have an international program here, and there are international opportunities, and that was something I was actually really interested in doing, and I'm really glad that I had that opportunity because I wanted to do it in my undergrad, and I never got the chance, and I was able to go to Lithuania in Europe the first half of my second summer. So anyways, you shape kind of your experience, and I think that y'all will figure that out as you go.
I know all of you are, different years, but like, what's your daily schedule like? What does it entail?
Andrew was still waking up at 4 a.m. to go run 10 miles and all that kind of stuff?
Negative. Well, yeah, I think it's a little different one all year, but I think that's probably more so what you're interested in. I'm a big believer in preparation, and I think I've put a lot more of that into practice second semester. But first semester, you'll have, your 3 doctrinal classes, and you'll have LP as well, which is your legal practice writing course. Well, you do other stuff too, but legal practice in general. But for the most part, I have 8 a.m.s every day. I don't know what Camille has. Some other sections start at 10. For me, honestly, I think the 8 o'clock works better for me because I think it forces me to get everything done. But normally I'm up by about 6:30. I don't like to rush. I call that period, the period where you make life decisions. So, if you're waking up at 7:45, then you made that decision and you got to deal with it. So, I like to get up at 6:30 just in case I need to handle any business, because basically from 8 until about 8 to 8, I'm here. I'm in class. I'm studying. I'm preparing for class. So there's really no time other than lunch. I'll usually carve out, I try to plan my days around my stomach too. So usually I carve out an hour for lunch, or there's usually lectures going on. I've talked to a few of you, and I think I said that I hardly have to bring my lunch because there's always something going on. But I like to carve out time, and that's one of those things that exposure is very valuable. So I'll carve out that time, either networking or doing whatever, just to kind of give myself a mental break. And then from about 1 to 3, I'm in class again, and then I'm still pretty active. So I don't get up at 4 o'clock, but usually right after class, I'll head to the gym for about an hour, and I'll come back, and it kind of rejuvenates me to prepare for the next day. And usually about, I'd say up until about 11, I'm still working, and then, sleep is premium as well. If we didn't have to sleep, I think things would be a lot easier, but it's a necessity. So I at least try to get, 6-7 hours average. It doesn't happen all the time, but that's pretty much my schedule. And like I said, preparation for me is key. So this semester, I'll try to knock out all the reading for at least one class for the week on the weekend. So then it's almost like I have 2 classes during the week, and it frees up so much more time. You're able to focus a little bit better, and you're able to fit things that kind of pop up. You're able to handle those things as they come up. So that's kind of my philosophy. It might be different from Camille's or anybody else's, but that's me. And I think you have to find what works for you and stick to that.
Camille, is that kind of similar, or are you?
Yeah, so one thing that I found to be really important when I came here last year for Acceptance Students Weekend, there was a lot of talk of reading early and working, people getting up really early and working till 6 and leaving, or not leaving, but a lot of people do that. And I think when you're coming into it, you're listening to what everyone's telling you, but I think it's really important to figure out what works for you. I also have 8 a.m. classes, and I'm not a morning person, so that has been kind of a struggle. So I know I try to wake up really early and do stuff, but for me it works better, and I go 8, 9, 10, and 11, and I'm done by noon. And so for me, and a lot of my classmates go straight through, and they at 12 they start studying, and that works for them. But for me, I need a break, and so I go home, I have lunch, I'll go to the rec, I'll do whatever, take a nap if I need to, and then I come back and I'll work till really late. Not really late, but however long I need to. And for me, just finding my own schedule and not trying to adapt myself to other people's schedule, and it works for them. And I think that's really important to learn early on, or else you're you're just going to be pedaling. And also for me, I can't read really far ahead. I have to read kind of the day before, I'll forget it. So just finding what works for you, I think, is just really important.
So in the interest of time, no offense, 2Ls, I'm going to skip you. And then Rob, Teresa, what's a typical 3L day? Because it's a lot different than the 1L day, I'm sure.
I think 2L year is really hard to schedule, but go ahead, Nira.
Yeah, I agree with Janae. 3L is really dependent on what you're involved in. So for me, I have a really unique schedule being on Law Review, and my editing duties on Law Review take up 50 hours a week. So I'm a morning person. I get up super early. I'm usually here at the school by 6:45, and I try to leave the school by 6 p.m., and I'll work a little bit from home. I will tell you that like what Andrew talked about, like being prepared for class is super important. But a lot of times it can fall by the wayside. I won't lie to you, especially your second year or your third year. And one way to combat that is recognizing that it doesn't take you as long to prepare for a class your second and third year as it does your first year, because it is like learning a new language when you're reading cases or statutes, and you get faster and better at it the more practice you have with it. So the one last thing I'll add is the first day of law school is the first day of your professional career. And if you're not ready to be an attorney when you start out law school, then you're going to have issues, frankly, because I don't know of any attorney that works just from 8 to 5. And if you want to be an attorney, you have to be ready to put in the hours, and I think that requires a lot of hard work. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I think there is a sense that you do kind of shape your own schedule, because of course you have the set schedule that you're assigned your first year, but other than that, you determine your own study schedule and how much time you're putting into everything. But I agree with Nirav. I mean, I think over the past 3 years, I mean, you very much mature with everything that you're exposed to, with everything that you have on your plate. But you have to start law school ready to go and really willing to put in the time. I'm married. I mean, I've been married. I was married well before law school. My husband and I are doing great. So it's not that you don't have a personal life. It's not that you can't enjoy yourself outside of law school. But there's just a balance. I mean, like I had said before, I took on, being a research assistant, and I was excited about being offered a spot on law review, and those have been my 2 main focuses. And then, of course, I've had some jobs and all of that, and that was in the summer. But when you're working over the summer, your sole dedication is just working over the summer, so you're not having to balance that with classes or anything. So during the school year, you decide how much you want to take on and how much you want to put on your plate. But that also means you have to, of course, maintain your classes and your study schedule and be able to balance it all. So it's really, I think it's just a balancing game. It's trying to figure out what works for you. I'm not a morning person, but I have kind of been forced to be because just kind of makes more sense. My husband works full time, so I'd wake up, go to classes, and then by the time I got home around 6 o'clock, I was able to enjoy my time with him because I focused on stuff during the day. And it worked out well, coming into this semester because I'm externing full time. And when you extern, if you do extern your last year, or I think you even have an opportunity your second year, you're basically a full-time employee. I mean, you're not technically an employee, you're an extern, but you are going to work from whatever, set amount of time the placement has designated for you. So I go to work from 8:30 and sometimes till 6:30. I mean, it really all depends on how much I have on my plate that day. So I think throughout law school, you're kind of preparing yourself for entering the career of being an attorney. And you'll find that as long as you're learning how to balance things your first year, it really isn't a problem. Like, you do get used to it. And it's something I think that each of y'all will figure out once you start law school.
We've got about 5-10 minutes.
Can I talk about 2L year real quick? Because I think it's really important. Sorry. But nobody told me.
I'm just going to go ahead and go to chili cook-off. You go ahead and
Nobody
take care
told
of it.
me how 2L year was going to be. Like, I was not prepared to come into 2L year. It's like, if you take on a journal, or if you take on a moot court team or a national mock trial team, I thought 2L year was going to be exactly the same as 1L year. Like, I thought I would be able to prepare. Like Andrew does, I used to read a week ahead for all my classes. I used to do all kinds of stuff, and I had so much more free time last year, and I expected it to be more of the same this year, and it's not, because you have so much going on. If you're on a journal, you really, 2L year, I think, is the defining moment of when you learn how to time manage. I'm on a journal, I'm on law review with Nirav, so learning how to time manage multiple deadlines in a week. Sometimes we had up to 4 or 5 deadlines in a week. Learning how to manage all those deadlines on top of classes and on top of the student organizations that you're involved in, I think is really hard. I struggled a lot last semester to learn how to do it. But I think you just really have to learn how to time manage. Like, I think 2L year doesn't give you a choice. So it's not because I'm a 2L that I think it's important. I just think 2L year is important because it's a learning curve. Like, you think 1L year is a learning curve, 2L year is a whole other one. So I think that's why it's so important. So don't come into 2L year thinking that it's going to be the same as 1L year, because it's not. You have so much more going on. And that's why I just felt like I needed to say something, because nobody prepared me. So I came into it blind, and it was a little bit of a shocker.
What do you guys do for fun outside of law school after we've just spent the last 15 minutes talking about how hard it is for school? How do you guys relax?
So I can start. It kind of just goes off of what he just said. You start to plan stuff for yourself that you enjoy, and you look forward to those breaks. My husband and I love outdoors things. So, things have been really hectic just because I'm working or externing full time. And we planned a little trip this past Easter weekend to Ruidoso. I mean, it's 4 hours away. We got to go hiking all day Saturday, and it was fantastic. And I didn't think about anything. I just relaxed. I hiked. And so, there's a lot of fun things you can do during law school. Like he said, take Friday night off. I mean, my husband and I have a date night once a week. We go to I was so excited when they opened the Alamo Draft House over here. So you look forward to those things throughout law school. You say, I'm going to take this night off, and you give yourself that night off. Or you say, I'm going to take this weekend off if you can afford a weekend off, and you take the whole weekend off. And I promise, you'll come back into the week feeling completely rejuvenated, and that has done wonders for me. So
just real quick, what you do? Let's just go down the line, because we got
Alamo Draft House and going home to Snyder to see my folks.
Alamo Draft House and drinking.
We play trivia on Friday nights, on Thursday nights sometimes at Alamo. I watch a lot of Netflix, and I also drink with Derek.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talked about, there's a lot of student organizations that do things, so that can kind of be your outlet / networking / whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I do that. I'm a gym rat, and I think I'm a gym rat because I'm a foodie. So you'll find there's a lot of little nooks and crannies and pretty good places to eat in Lubbock. So I'm slowly finding that out, but that's pretty much what I do.
I like to go to the movies, I like to watch Netflix, and I like to go to Chimmy's.
Cool. And so the last one I want to because nobody specifically asked this, but we've talked a lot about it generally this week, is the access to the professors. Because I think for people that, like me, went to A&M, big school, people used to say, yeah, go talk to your professors, and I didn't really get it, why you would do that, because I'd never had to do that. People that go to smaller schools understand it a little more. Can just a couple of y'all talk about what that means sort of in a concrete way to your education, like in class, maybe a time where that really helped you, or how that interaction with the faculty enhances your experience?
Well, I think it helps because you don't really have to plan for it. If you're like, well, I know Professor Perez is only open from 3 to 4, then I have to plan my day around that. And it's almost, I guess it's not inconvenient, but it pretty much, it is inconvenient because there's only a certain amount of time, only a certain point in time that you can meet with a professor, as opposed to knowing that they're here and they're not teaching, and I can go walk in and ask them a question that I need to. Like I said, I had a different undergraduate experience than a lot of you, but they had an open door policy there as well. And I guess it was implied that, okay, I do have office hours, but we do have an open door policy. And a lot of professors were good about it, but there were a lot who were not. And it really wasn't enforced like it is here. I feel like if there was one or two that didn't, it would, people talk, and it's one of those things that I feel like the administration and the culture here really wouldn't allow that to happen. So it really is a good thing to have.
So I'll just echo kind of what Andrew said. I didn't expect the open door policy here to be for real open door policy, because I think a lot of schools say that they have an open door policy, and it's not really. Literally walking, when I do tours of the law school, when I take students on tours, I take them up to the professor's suite, and I will walk into any professor's door that is open if they're not in class, and they will sit there and talk to the student if I bring them in, which I think is really cool, and that's why I do it, because I want these students these prospective and admitted students like you guys to know that our open door policy is for real. Like, I don't tell the professors that I'm coming, I just go in and take them up there. So for me, open door policy is really nice. I bugged my LP professor so much last year. I'm surprised she still likes me. I literally bugged her every day. But it's really important, and I think it's really vital. And it's not just you have to go to their office. You can talk to them outside of class. If you have questions, they'll walk with you. They'll sit down in the forum and talk to you, take questions from you. And I think it's not something that I expected, but it's something that I really enjoy. I think something else that we didn't talk about was the tutors 1L year. So every doctrinal class that you take, and for LP, they're called teaching fellows, you have a tutor. So it's a student or two students that sit in the class and pretty much go through the class with you. Again, they've already taken the class and done well in it. So they'll sit and they'll give you tutoring sessions on, I think, Fridays, most of them are, and they have office hours as well. So you can sit there and talk to them. And I think they're super important. A lot of them are super helpful. Jerry Lee, Jerry Lee is one of our, she's the student writing executive on Law Review. She was my contracts tutor last year, and Jerry Lee is the reason that I did well in contracts. And you will have tutors like that. And I think it's super important, and I think it's something that's very unique and awesome about our law school and our program is that these tutors are literally there to help you, so you don't have just one resource, you have a variety of them. And so that, I think, was a deciding factor for me as well.
You all got to see Professor Beyer today. He's like that every day. He's full of energy. And I had him for property, and I have him for wills and trusts, and he's our faculty advisor for the journal. So can't say enough great things about Professor Beyer. There are several professors that are like that here. And, Beyer is one of the national people in his field. You probably talked about supplements or know about supplements. One of the supplements is the E&E, or examples and explanations, and Beyer wrote the E&E. You talked about Professor Benham, which is basically Beyer half his age.
Picture Matthew McConaughey, but not from The Lincoln Lawyer, but when he was in the other, when he was a good lawyer.
Yeah.
That other movie.
So many great professors. I really can't say, in different styles. Then we have Professor Watts, who, if you're going to Chili Cook-Off, you'll get to see him. If you haven't met him already, you go prepared to his class if you have him. It's an interesting experience if you don't. I don't recommend it. But
Professor Watts was in the Marines for 10 years.
Yeah, he was in the Marines, and he's a Harvard Law graduate and an awesome dude. But I really can't say enough great things about the professors. My income tax professor, Professor Camp, who also teaches 1L Civ Pro, used to be, on general counsel for the IRS in DC. All of our professors have practiced. They're all uber brilliant and just great people, very approachable.
I won't take up any more of your time. I echo what Janae and Derek have said.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was one of the things that attracted me here. So I absolutely love the open door policy.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.